but I think we've got to roll with it.
Okay, let's roll with it.
Hi everybody, welcome to Simon on the Sofa, and this little screensaver that you're seeing is the introduction right there. Yeah. Sorry, Miguel, there's massive feedback now.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it's really loud. But I think maybe then, can you keep, we might have to, we're not destined to do this. Everybody watching, if you're there, thank you, but it's like not destined to happen because there's massive, massive feedback now. But we will overcome this. So let me, so what we've got to do now is to unplug your earphones, Miguel, and then change your setting. Your microphone has been muted, so unmute your microphone, and then you might have to change the settings. Yeah, talk to me now.
Hello, hello. Yeah, my settings are back to default. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good. Okay, so
we're going without the headphones.
Well, I don't know what we have. We have a choice. So I think this is better. So let's go with this, and let me just bring us off and introduce everybody, because if we yes. Yeah, take the headphones off for now, because that interference was crazy. But this is awesome, because actually, welcome everybody. Thank you, and sorry for that little introduction. If you're joining us live, me and Miguel just have spent 25 minutes getting the sound right, and it's quite good actually. It's sort of perfect, because tonight's conversation is with a wonderful man, Miguel. Hey, Miguel.
Hello, Simon. Hi. Hi.
There you go. Thank you so much for your patience. And this is the thing with this technical difficulties online sometimes, is that it's actually a great metaphor for adversity. And this conversation tonight with beautiful Miguel Dean, who I spoke to maybe over a year ago now, and we connected. I can't even remember fully how, but Miguel had an experience when he was younger around something I was really interested in. He was homeless, and he'd had a number of life lessons, and you could say had experienced some of the adversity is the word he chooses to use, as I had. And you know, I sort of went into my own sort of darkness, and he did his. And he'd written a book called Stepping Stones in the Mist, which you can see here. And he sent it to me, and I started reading it. I haven't finished the whole book, and it was beautiful because it got me to pick it up this week as well, and just have a little dive in there. But actually, I hadn't spoken to Miguel for quite some time, and I was thinking, because lots of people contact me for Simon on the Sofa, and I was thinking, hey, at some point I've got to speak to Miguel, and he's on the list, and it always unfolds in its own beautiful, divine way. And then I watched a wonderful, which I did put in the trailer of this event, a wonderful short promo video of an event. Yeah, you could say an event that Miguel recently did with youth. And that was another thing that drew us both together, is that Miguel works with youth and empowers youth. He's a coach and he's a writer, but he really is out there supporting the youth, and really with the youth. He's like in there. Like sometimes I'm thinking about working with youth, but I personally haven't worked with youth as much as I'd like. I'm sort of working with 20-year-olds upwards. And I watched this lovely video, and I was super, super inspired. And so I dropped him a message and said, hey, Miguel, let's talk about the youth. But before we dive in maybe to that, Miguel, it'd be nice if you want to just, I'd love to know how you're feeling right now. I know we just spent 25 minutes getting the sound together, but maybe a little check-in with how you're feeling, maybe for people that definitely don't know you or have heard of you, and just, yeah, what's happening for you in this moment, and then we can see what arises, and then we can dive into wherever the journey takes us. And thank you for your patience.
Okay. Well, yeah, right this moment, I'm doing okay. It's really nice. It's nice to be here. It's kind of like, yeah, it's not a big surprise or anything about the technical stuff. It is that, you know, I guess one of my big catchphrases is, it's not what happens, it's how we respond that makes the difference. So you know, it's okay, it's okay. And I think I said to Simon early on, with the slight technical challenges, I hope this isn't going to be anything my end, because I'm not too confident on the technical stuff, so I hope you can sort it all out.
Exactly.
But yeah, you know, it's good enough. It's good enough, and here we are. And I really like it. I'm one of these people that really likes interviews and job interviews and just conversations and, you know, in the moment stuff where I don't know what you're going to ask me, Simon, and I really enjoy that. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, the intrigue, the unknown, there's an element of excitement to the anticipation of what may come next, and I think maybe I think there's one thing I did like about reading your book, and you said it at the beginning as well, is that it's not about dwelling on past stories, because we all have adversity to deal with in life. But maybe if I just say to you, yeah, just what pops up for you when I say, what was the darkest moment for you on this journey? Because you've been on a pretty epic one. What was the most, the darkest and the emotionally the most challenging for you in your life?
Well, I guess I'm gonna do a classic. I'm not going to answer it in one. There's kind of like two, but I'll keep them brief, because there are two really that stand out, and they're both very different. The one was when my best mate at the time was stood in front of me and with an axe in his hand, and it was raised above his head, and he's totally off his face on drugs, and he's really threatening, you know, to do me some damage with this axe, and almost like, you know, crazier than all of that was, you know, I have a vague recollection what it was about, and it was just about some ridiculous little comment. It wasn't like a big deal, like I'd done anything bad. It was just the chaotic sort of drug-fueled times that I was living in, and the realization that, oh my God, that, you know, this is my best mate. You know, it's like, you know, maybe you need to be thinking about your choice of friends, Miguel, like who you're knocking about with. So that was a pretty key moment, kind of bit of a wake up. And the second one really was, it was probably about 5 years later, and I was still kind of in the chaos, if you like, lost in the labyrinth, and I had a little boy by this time who was about 2 years old, and I'd really hoped and prayed and wished that becoming a father would make everything better, and it would just take me out of the darkness and just transform everything, sort of, you know, without me having to do too much, really. You know, I was still in that. I hadn't realized that change is always an inside job. And I was still hoping that, you know, we could tweak some things on the outside, you know, have a baby, you know, change jobs or change a few things, and everything would be better. But it was this morning, waking up and realizing, you know, after months of arguments, you know, with my partner and things not going well, and realizing that maybe this boy would be better off without me in the picture. Maybe I should just walk away, because I was obnoxious, I was insecure, I was depressed. The drugs certainly weren't working anymore. They weren't numbing it. They weren't keeping the cork on all the emotion that was inside me. And yeah, it was faced with that realization, really, that maybe I needed to walk away, and knowing that if I did walk away, there was no real motivation for me to get my act together. And quite a few of my friends had, shall we say, fallen by the wayside: suicides, drug overdoses, car crashes. And it was kind of like, maybe that's where I need to go. So those were I would say, you know, those two. And then the second, really, you know, when I talk, my son was 21. This son that I'm talking about, he was 21 the other day. And yeah, it was really quite a powerful moment for me, you know, realizing that, yeah, maybe he saved me, you know, maybe he was my angel that you know, that saved me. So I didn't quite have it in me.
Yeah, maybe gave you the opportunity to ask those questions and give you a little bit of a different choice moment, isn't it? Maybe gave you a bit of a choice moment, which is the same as the axe, you know, the man with the axe as well. because these moments arise, don't they, when we're having challenges and we're in that sort of, I call it the emotional pain, you know, we're in the emotional pain and we're in that world. And then sometimes we don't get the choices, or it can take us the other way. But I like what you said there, and I know that you do a lot of work with different people, and especially the youth. So you know, that emotional, let's talk about the emotions. I love to get in with men and talking about emotion and feeling, because it's something that I think that a lot of men don't talk about, and I think that's one of the things that's missing from definitely the youth. To actually really have a space where they can talk about what they're feeling, their anger, their emotion, their challenges with sexuality, their challenges with life and uncertainty and so on. So, mate, it'd be lovely to hear, you know, how did you or how do you deal with, you know, the emotions, especially when you're in that sort of darker space of, you know, I know you was, I don't want to speak for you, but on drugs, you ended up homeless, you went on a whole sort of, a barrage of different experiences. So yeah, you know, how did you pull yourself through the drugs, of the depression? When you said the drugs weren't working, I'm assuming you mean even the drugs to trying to help you with depression, etc., right?
No, not really. It was, you know, just my understanding of drug abuse really is, yeah, that actually, whether it's legal drugs for depression or whether it's street drugs, it's all, you know, you can't say 100%, but my experience is that for the most part, it's an attempt to numb the pain. It's a coping mechanism, whether it's street drugs or whether it's, you know, doctor's drugs. So, right. You know, I didn't realize that at the time, obviously, but when I look back, I can see what was going on. And it was like the pressure was building and building and building. And it's that thing of, you know, in the darkness of the unconscious, if issues and things aren't addressed, it's not that they just stay the same. This monster kind of grows and grows, gains more power and more strength. So it's forcing that lid off, that stopper that you're desperately trying to keep it all down, you know?
Right.
Yeah. What was the original question?
No, I like that. No, don't worry. There's never really a question. It's more just trust where you're feeling. But what I like that is like you're suppressing what needs to come out. So there was stuff that needed to come out for you, right? There was stuff that was bottled up. I like that expression, bottled up. So mate, it's always nice. Like, so what was your way of dealing with all of that, like suppressed emotion and that bottling up that you had done for however many years, or that numbing of the pain, as you say?
Yeah. Okay. Well, what happened was, you know, I can't remember whether it was exactly that morning that I had that realization, but as I say, I tried to change a few things on the outside, you know.
Yeah.
But none of it worked. And I'd always said to my partner, look, if nothing else works, I will even go and see a counsellor. And I didn't have a clue, you know. I'd been living, you know, outside of society for about 8 years, living on the road, living on the streets, itinerant work, thieving, or, you know, whatever. But I'd heard of counselling, like, you know, my understanding was it was for people whose heads were screwed up. And I knew that my head was screwed up. But at the same time, I didn't have a clue. How is going and having a chat with somebody really going to sort, you know, what's going on for me?
Right.
How is that possibly going to help? But, you know, I'd said to my partner that I would do this. And I guess for all my faults, integrity and actually doing what I say I'm going to do is something that even through all that chaos has stayed with me. So it feels a bit like a sort of Jesus and Mary type thing, you know, going to, you know, I went into town. I jumped in my van and drove to the closest town, and I just kind of went.
Hold that thought and put your camera back on. It's dropped off, but I wanted to not stop you mid-flow. But yeah, put your camera back on. It's disappeared. I've lost your lovely face.
My camera's gone. Oh my god!
There you go. You're back. Go for it.
Continue.
So you jumped in the van.
Yeah, I jumped in the van, and yeah, I know the first place I went to was Mind. I didn't have a clue where I was going, but I knew that Mind was an organisation that worked with people whose heads were messed up, you know, mental health problems. And I remember going in, finding their office in the town, and them saying, "Oh no, you know, you don't tick our boxes. We can't help you."
Right.
And you know, and they said try this place, and I just kind of was walking like zigzags, kind of, you know, to different places across the town. And everybody just kind of going, well, nah, sorry, you know, we can't help you, you know. And then, you know, a bit like the nativity story. It was getting dark, and I was just like, you know, really running out of steam and just really feeling defeated. And as I left this building, one of the members of staff sort of like ran out after me and said, I couldn't help you overhearing what you said. And then, you know, they said that, you know, we can't help you, but I'm seeing a private counselor, and maybe, you know, I can give you his phone number, and if you give him a call, maybe he can help. So that was, you know, it's funny, isn't it? You know, I wonder how the journey would have been different if that person hadn't, in that instant, just thought, oh, I'll follow that bloke and just suggest this.
Yeah, beautiful.
So they did. You know, they gave me the number, and I phoned it up, and yeah, and the guy said, yeah, you can come and see me, and you know, I arranged an appointment, and yeah, it was just a few. I didn't have many sessions with him, but what I remember was, you know, this feeling of it. I guess it was the first time that I was with somebody that felt like they really cared, and the first time that I began talking about what had happened to me as a child. And very quickly, I began to piece together why I'd been living the way I'd been living, you know, that all my feelings of lack of self-worth and how I'd been abusing and neglecting myself were all a reflection of what I felt deep inside myself. And yeah, you know, everything just kind of came into focus, sort of, you know, sort of light bulb moments, and realizing that everything was connected. It wasn't just by chance that I'd been living how I was, and that I needed to do stuff differently. That there was changes that I could and needed to make inside me.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. And like you said, it's had that person not run down the road. It's funny, isn't it? When we can first acknowledge that we've got a problem, as it were. I know you've probably worked with alcoholics, or at least know of some alcoholics. They always say, don't they, that the alcoholic won't stop until it can realize that you know, it has a problem, right? And then it can work on it. So, and there is something beautiful that happens when you realize that, and you go and you ask for help. Because okay, they might not be able to help you, but you was asking for help. It's as if like you were saying, hey, I've got a problem, I need help, and then that person come running down the road. So it's like something meets you halfway, or at least shows up. It may not show up how you want it to show up or how you think it might show up, but it shows up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, yeah, there's a saying, isn't there? You know, if you take a step towards life, life will take 10 steps towards you.
Right.
You know, it was something like that. It's the massive part of it, isn't it? The admitting that you've got a problem and asking for help. And so many people, you know, there's so much stigma around that you know, that we keep our darkness, our pain, we hide it, and we wear these masks of I'm cool and everything's okay.
Right.
And that causes so much suffering and so much alienation. And God, you know, how many suicides, how many horrendous things happen just because of that stigma around saying, hey, I need help. I'm struggling here. I'm lost, and I need some help.
Yeah, exactly. And so so from that point, you had that help. You went to that counselor, and you know, obviously the rest is history, as they say. But obviously it wasn't just black and white. And then you obviously you wanted to, I don't know, tell us, you wanted to give back. You felt that there was I need to help people, you know, I need to help people like me. I know the answer to mine, but I'd love you to tell the people listening, you know, what made you put yourself in this role of helping young people?
Yeah, well, the first thing that happened really was, you know, I was totally blown away by what this guy had done for me. He just kind of seemed to just sit and listen, and he looked deep inside me. He just held my sort of gaze. He would just look into my eyes, and, you know, and ask a few simple questions. And yeah, you know, I'd never experienced anything like this before, and very quickly it was I want to be able to do what this guy has done. I'd never up until then, you know, I'd worked on building sites, I'd worked pulling mussels out of locks in Scotland, I'd worked in factories, in, you know, just in what I called sort of real, it was donkey work at the time, you know, real manual labor, planting trees on mountains and crazy stuff, farm work, picking hop harvests. And then, you know, experiencing this and just going, I want to do this. And all of a sudden, my passion for learning was reawakened, because, you know, school had been crap. You know, I couldn't wait to leave. It bored me. It was just as challenging as my home life, really. And I wanted a bit of what this guy had. So I signed on at college in that same town to do a counselling qualification. And yeah, that was incredibly difficult, because you know, one of the first things that happened when I started sharing that stuff with the counsellors, I got horrendously ill. You know, as I started releasing the emotional, as I started talking about it emotionally, it all manifested in my body, and I got really ill, and I was riddled with anxiety attacks and stuff, and I just felt like this. I felt like the Elephant Man or something, like, you know, I was like, my skin was just red and sore, and the toxins all just started wanting to come out. And I was sat in these counselling lessons every time feeling like, you know, the dirty junkie, you know, with dark secrets, and all these nice normal people. And I used to have all these panic attacks and stuff, like, and but I forced myself, you know, to stay with the program. And when it came to an end after a year, I'd planned to sort of do the whole thing, but I did a year, and I thought, you know, that's enough of academic stuff for now. But I wanted to, I needed to be able to practice the skills that I'd learned. And my counselling tutor said, well, why don't you do some voluntary work? Because the work I was doing at the time was with adults with learning difficulties. I'd just moved into a house for the first time. Right. And it was the first sort of job that I could get, but I couldn't practice my counselling skills with that kind of client group. So I just opened the Yellow Pages. You know, remember that thing, the Yellow Pages that we used to have? And
yeah, the damn Yellow Pages. Yeah,
and I closed my eyes, and I just ran my finger down, and I opened my eyes and looked where my finger was pointed, and it was this organisation called Youth Inquiry and Support Service. So I rang him up and said, can I do some voluntary work with you? Because I need to, you know, practice my counselling skills, and I'm interested in working with young people. Because at that stage, I did have this vague, arrogant idea that I know what these young people need. Like, you know, I'll be able to help them and sort them out. So that was how it started, really, you know. And
what happened? Wait there before you go. What happened? Like, you thought you had an idea that you could sort these young people out, and then soon you realised what?
I realised that my idea of sorting them out was just replicating what had happened to me as a kid, sort of thing. You know, right. Some of the things that happened to me, the sort of toughness, the discipline, the harshness, the sort of consistency. What I call the tough love. Right. Tough love stuff, but what
so
I didn't realise.
You thought they needed some tough love. You mean?
Yeah. I thought that was what they needed, and I thought, you know, well, I've come through this, and you know, I've lived on the road for these amount of years, and they'll have a lot of respect for me and stuff. And did I get it wrong? You know, did I get it wrong?
And what happened when you first started? What happened when you first started?
Yeah.
Was it? Did you have a first group, or was it like one child? You know, how many youth did you have a group? What happened?
Well, what happened after doing a little bit of stuff for the Youth Inquiry and Support Service, that sort of equipped me with experience and I did a youth work qualification with them. They paid for me to do that in return for the voluntary work, and that led to me getting a job at a homeless foyer, it was called, for homeless 16 to 25-year-olds. So that was kind of like my real first work with young people, you know, because just going for a couple of hours doing some voluntary stuff didn't really count. I was just kind of hanging out, really. But at the homeless place, it was, yeah, they just ran circles around me, really, like, you know. And I remember them locking me out of the staff room and chucking my stuff out the window, and you know, there were night shifts and stuff where it's like they just keep you awake the whole time. And you'd be, you know, the police, you'd have to be calling the police, or you'd be calling the ambulance, or it was just crazy, like, you know, it was absolutely crazy. And they had no respect for me at all.
Right.
In fact, it was really funny because I had long hair at the time, and the organisation decided to do these staff portraits that they painted on the stairs. And so there was my staff portrait, and they graffitied it and put a little moustache and a little goatee beard, and it was like horns. So it was like Miguel the devil, like, you know, it was like, that was what they thought of me, like, you know. So it was good for my humility, I guess.
Yeah. They gave you a good foundation of what's to come.
Oh God, what an initiation! What an initiation!
That's the word. That's the better word. That's the better word. Initiation. Yeah, that was your initiation into helping. Because it's funny. It's funny you bring that up, because when I came to Malta, I wanted to help, and I went and spoke to somebody at the YMCA, and I thought, I wanted to do some stuff with some youth. And as I said, I've done a few things with youth, but nothing much. A couple of workshops, and they just got me to speak to this one guy who was obviously a real troublesome person. And the thing is there was nothing really there, because he was so closed. He was so closed in terms of is wanting to actually help himself, and is wanting to actually communicate. And who am I? I'm just a guy coming in. He was from Libya. I'm just a guy coming in, an English guy who may supposedly know something, or not know something of what he's going through, but not really. I don't know anything about him, losing his mum, having a shit life, being addicted to drugs, dealing, and doing all this stuff. I mean, I had my experience of that, but that doesn't mean it's the same emotional experience as somebody else. And I remember I only met him one. He didn't turn up. Then he turned up late. Then I met him, and then I actually just decided that I actually decided that I couldn't help him. It was like it was actually wrong of me to go there thinking that I could help him, and that actually was actually that I couldn't help him, because he wasn't. Maybe I wasn't open as well. It's a mirror, right? But he wasn't open to even the potential. And then what it really highlighted for me, Miguel, and I'd love you to talk about this from your experience, because you've worked with a lot more youth, is that I didn't get the sense. One, I didn't get the sense that he wanted the help, because he was almost rebelling against those that were trying to help him. And then I had this sense that, like, is it something? Who are we to say that they need help? I don't know. I had this sort of thing going on about, like, who am I to think that he needs help? Like, I went through my experience, and I came out, and I'm okay, and I'm having a great life, and I've pulled myself through, and I did have help along the way. But you see what I mean? I don't know. Maybe what comes up for you? Talk to that. Like, who are we to say that they need help? Yeah.
I think it's a really big key point, and it just gets missed most of the time, Simon. Because if you're entering a relationship on the basis that I'm coming to help you, straight away you're disempowering that person, because you're communicating that you're broken, that there's a problem with you, and that you can't sort it out yourself. Beautiful. So that's a totally unbalanced relationship, to enter into. You're kind of belittling the person, straight away, and there's this total mismatch in power. So in a way, you're just exaggerating and highlighting their sense that they're powerless, and that they're small, and that they're broken. You're just kind of like shining a load of spotlights on that. So that's hardly going to build rapport, really, is it? It's like rubbing salt in the wound.
Exactly. Beautiful. And yeah, that's really beautiful. And also, I realized at that time what's required to build a relationship and have the respect and integrity and have the connection that's required. Am I even capable of doing that? Or I think maybe how you went in, I sort of maybe thought, I can just go in and do a few things and do a few workshops here and there, share some concepts, and I'm going to get them. But it just doesn't work like that. And as you were speaking, I got the sense of how I now share with people, is that to see everybody as already whole, to see everybody as already a magnificent divine expression of life in whatever stage they're at. And yeah, but tell me, what's your approach now? Because you just worked with how many 8 people in this project that you just took through. Like,
Yeah.
what's your approach? Because I've read some testimonials. People really love you. They relate to you. They connect to your story. But what's been the gifts that you've picked up?
The first thing that comes to mind, Simon, is it's about meeting young people where they are. You got to meet them. You've got to meet them where they are. And those 8 young people that just came through the Voices of the Future project with me, they're all in completely different places. They're in completely different levels of awareness, different degrees of pain, different degrees of understanding. So it's. I guess it's that thing, that's really important for me, is that this weird paradox that, the greatest key to my own healing is self-acceptance. And so the greater and the more deeply I can embody that and be that, accepting myself and accepting the young people where they are, then the transformation and the change takes place, as a direct correlation to that. And having said that, there is that, there's that strange paradox stuff that, I love and accept myself as I am, and there's stuff I need to do to move forward and to constantly grow and stretch myself. So, there's that two kind of things which seem to conflict, but I guess it's just going with that dance with the young people as much as possible. It's kind of, sometimes you just let stuff go. Other times, to be tough and to challenge them and say, hold on, this is out of order, but you can only really begin to start doing that when, the foundation for me is in meeting their emotional needs. Right. Every young person and every human being has not had their emotional needs met 100%. Right. So the extent to which I can meet their emotional needs, which largely they're unconscious of, and when I'm talking about their emotional needs, I'm talking about, the need for affirmation, the need for respect, the need for affection, the need for, for attention, security, all that sort of stuff. The more that I can just meet those needs in the way that I am with them, the quicker we connect, and they just want to hang out with me because they know that they don't know it consciously, but there's this kind of like magnetic pull. I like being around this person. They don't know why, but I know why, because I'm meeting their needs. And the worse the behavior, the bigger the deficit in having their needs met when they were younger. So it's kind of like just building a foundation, really. It's this it's inputting, meeting their needs through the way that I am with them, and through the respect and through the care and so on, that perhaps wasn't met through their, through their family experience.
Yeah. So in your experience, are you saying that the youth, there's a couple of things that come up for me, is that in your experience, there's like a set of emotional, or emotions, not emotion, but emotions that every individual, every human, every youth has, that needs to be addressed, and ultimately, if that's not, then we're getting the dysfunction. Is that what you're pointing to?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and the more extreme the challenging behavior, the less their emotional needs have been met, the bigger deficit, the bigger empty big void inside them, that has translated into them feeling, I'm not worthy, I'm a bad person, I'm unlovable, and all that stuff. And I know this stuff because it's my story. That it was exactly what was going on for me, Right.
So yeah, go on. So what are we talking about? We're talking obviously from unworthiness. They're dealing with fear. They're dealing with core unworthiness, agreements, and almost agreement and conditioned programs that have been set in place, right, from our ancestors and before that and so on, that have told us that we're unworthy, that we're imperfect, that we're not good enough, that we'll never amount to anything, that who am I to be anybody, etc., etc. But which key ones have you come up for the viewers that are really, which are really relevant?
For me personally, or in my work with young people?
Yeah, or yeah, a bit of both really. Definitely, because like keeping it relevant for you personally, and both really, because
Yeah,
what I really love, and what I got from your video, and what I've got from reading some stuff about you recently, is that you're really highlighting that there is an epidemic, a mental health epidemic, and that there are youth out there. And like you said earlier, it's okay saying okay, it is what it is, and everything's beautiful and everything's great. But also, there's a hell of a lot of suffering, right? There's a lot of youth that are suffering. There's a lot of youth that don't have support. The parents don't even have the mental capacity to support their children, that they keep having children, and the list goes on and on. It's almost like a vicious circle of insanity, I call it sometimes.
Yeah. So, it's really big. It's really big, the stuff that's going on out there. And for me, you see, because what I saw, what had happened to me, but those feelings that I felt about my unworthiness and so on. So then we unconsciously recreate a life that mirrors that back to us, that's in alignment with our beliefs. But it's until those beliefs start to become conscious, until you can, that you can start doing something about it. And this stuff, I mean, the epidemic, I would say it is an epidemic. It's like, if you just, I mean, the 8 young people on the Voices of the Future project, there was really broad spectrum of young people. One of them was at university, another one was just doing A levels. There was one guy who'd been all through the care system, and all sorts of chaos had happened, and drugs and prison. Another young lady that had a very broken family and been homeless for a while. So it was a real mix. But when they were sat in circle and we're doing some stuff together, and I just say, just out of interest, put your hand up if you have any experience of anxiety or depression. And they all stick their hand up, and you wouldn't really know that if you passed them on the street. Oh, this is, this young person's from a pretty good background, quite stable home and so on. But you scratch the surface, and it's scary being a young person, and the metaphor that I'm using more and more when I'm speaking these days is that our young people are like the canaries that the miners used to take down into the mines, to let them know that there was danger. And the issues, the fact that we have so many issues with our young people suggests to me, if there aren't enough warning signs already, that something is not right. Something's not right. I guess that's why I ended up doing loads more, really getting involved in speaking and social change work, and because I realized very quickly that until society changes, until communities start being wholesome, until all this fear that is generated everywhere, and until we start addressing some of that stuff, we're not going to stop churning out these dysfunctional young people that are full of fear and that haven't had their needs met because of the place that they've grown up.
Right, beautiful. Right, so when you're speaking with the youth now, because it's interesting, isn't it? Exactly what you're saying is the message that has to be continued to be shared. It's the story, it's the new story of the people. Whichever way you look at it, we need to address we have to address the old ways that we've been engaging and connecting and showing up as parents, as role models, as co-creators of community and culture and society standard. We have to take responsibility of that, correct? So then when we're dealing with these children, and dealing is not really the right word, but when we're connecting with these children and we're getting the opportunity and they're trusting people like yourself and myself and whoever else is doing this work, is also a thin line between those that have actually gone through and done their own personal work. Because there's helpers out there, isn't there, Miguel? There's people out there in this field. There's people in the mental health. Me and you spoke about this a year ago. And there's just so much red tape and blockage. And the people helping the young people, they ain't done the work themselves. So it's like the blind leading the bloody blind, right? At times.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's sort of like this real dodgy territory. I'd love you to speak about it again, because you're in that field, but it's not to judge and say they're bad and they don't want to help, but almost like are we supporting our youth to actually go, wow, we are the leaders and the role models of our generations, and we can change the blueprint of our upbringing, and we can create beautiful worlds for our children and educate our parents? Or is it like, hey, you guys, again, you know, like we said earlier, you guys have got problems, you need fixing, and you know, we're the ones that are helping you, but we haven't even fixed ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there's a I had to keep this reasonably concise because I could go on about this for ages. But it is that, you know, it's not just that it is perfectly the blind leading the blind, but it's not just that they're not helping the young people. Sometimes they're making things worse,
right?
Because a lot of stuff gets projected onto the young people, and you know, I see. You know, and I guess I need to qualify this. There are a lot of youth workers and there's a lot of young people who work with young people that have got really good hearts and that are doing good stuff. But there are also a lot of people that are in that line of work, I see, that are unconsciously attracted to that kind of work just because they're just, it makes them feel a little bit better about themselves. There's a group of people that they're not quite as screwed up as. And so that they feel a bit better about themselves by hanging out and having a bit of power,
right,
a bit of control,
right,
over those people.
So right there, so hold that, because that's a powerful thing that you say there. So just for people listening, this is really important. So what we're talking about here, we've got other people that are potentially coming in, and just so everybody knows listening, this is not about putting people down, because Miguel shared with me a couple of things in the past that he was working to almost train the trainers and train the people that are working with the youth as well, because that was one of the things that he wanted to do. He realized in certain organizations that these people do have big hearts. Some of them do want to do good, but if there's a subtle undercurrent of almost their own unworthiness just being helped by projecting onto others, that's actually just that's damaging. Yeah. And I know I'm repeating what you just said, but this is subtle, but we're dealing with a human being here with emotions and a life. This is really serious work.
Yeah. It's the you know, I was listening to your conversation with Mac the other day, and you know, Mac introduced me to the concept of the twin trails, you know, and these, you know, the twin trail of doing your own inner work and, you know, introspection and so on, and at the same time service to the world, you know, making a difference, contributing. But the two are interwoven. And if you're just wanting to fix other people without doing your own inner work, then, you know, it's that thing, your lens is completely filthy. So how do you know what you think is the right thing to do, and what is going to be helping is actually just a reflection of your own stuff, and it can often be quite skewed, you know. Yeah. So, you know, if you're not, you know, what I say a lot of the time, it's not about what you do. It is about what you do with young people, but as importantly, and perhaps more importantly, it's about who you are.
Right.
Because that energetic exchange goes deeper than anything that you do on the surface. You know, it's this kind of, again, it's this dance of doing and being. Where is your doing arising from? Is it arising from a place of compassion and love and real care for these young people? Or is it arising from an unconscious place of, well, while I'm dealing with their stuff, at least it means I don't have to look at all the crap that's going on in my life and all the demons and shadows that are lurking around that I haven't got the courage to have a look at that's in myself, you know?
Right. Yeah, which is only going to cause more conflict and only going to fuel the fire of suffering. Yeah, for sure. Lovely. So that's lovely. I mean, that's that's just in itself. That in itself, if people that are out there, if you're watching this and you're working with the youth and you take a few things away of what Miguel shared today, you know, this can, and what Mac just shared, I love that, the two trails is that, you know, we have to do, it's always coming back, it's constantly coming back to doing the work on yourself. You know, as Polly Higgins said, dealing with that inner ecocide, because the ecocides on the outside that we're causing out in the world are only a mirror reflection of what's going on inside of us. So we have to deal with the violence inside of us, the anger, the emotional pain, the suffering, the resentment, the blame, the shame, the guilt, all of that. So I love that. So Miguel, like with that, I know we're sort of halfway through this lovely conversation, or wherever it goes, it goes. But So what's your message? What you've picked up along the way now? What's the message to the youth? And maybe if there's some youth that are listening to this today, maybe there's some people listening to this that are depressed, maybe challenged, uncertain right now. Everything's crumbling, isn't it, Miguel? You've got the monetary systems crumbling. There isn't even a monetary system anymore. We're just in the lag time until it completely collapses, right? And then you've got, you know, the economy's collapsing. You name it, systems, theories, ideas. I think it's a rich time, but for a lot of people, they've got so much fear. They don't know where to get a job, how to get a house. You know, they're lost.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things there that, you know, the one that kind of almost kind of like bridges those 2 points that we were just talking about, that, you know, the unconsciousness of people working with youth sometimes and doing your inner work is that, you know, this beautiful Rumi quote, you know, that says, you know, this being a candle isn't easy. In order to give light, you must burn first. So it's that sense of you have to go into your own darkness in order to be able to, you know, to give light. And, you know, for me, what's happening in my life is that there just seems to be the veil between what's happening inside me and what I see is happening in the world is just becoming so thin. It's kind of like that there isn't really any difference anymore. And that's what I see is happening in the world, the same, that humanity is, it's a time of burning. It's the dark night of the soul for humanity. But, you know, and as difficult and chaotic and painful and dark as that is, that chaos is invariably what is the prelude to birth and creation and the new. So, you know, no matter how dark it is, and no matter, you know, it's kind of like, it's kind of about embracing that darkness, you know. It's not about fighting it and avoiding it. And, you know, I don't want to give the impression that I'm Mr. Sorted with, oh yeah, you know, any pain, I can just sit there and I'll just be with it and transform it like that, you know. Because, yeah, you know, I screw up plenty, and I find myself running away and avoiding and stuff before I catch myself and go, all right, you're doing that again.
Picking up, noticing the cycles.
So it's about realizing that, yeah, it is difficult, it is tough. The more awake, well, I guess it's two ways, you know. It seems to me like, you know, as you awaken, you feel the pain of it more from a kind of like a conscious place, and the joy, of course, and the beauty that we see that so deeply as well, you know. So often the tears are, I don't know whether they're tears of sadness or joy or bliss. It's just so woven together, you know.
Yeah,
but from an unconscious place, there's a deep pain as well going on for people that perhaps don't understand what's happening, and, you know, just the day-to-day stuff of, where do I get a job, how do I pay the bills, how do I, you know, where am I going to live, you know. And I think that's all, that stuff is kind of like pressing in. It's like a sort of universal depression on young people, particularly because they're vulnerable and you know, that they haven't totally found their way, and they're in this kind of place of not knowing, because we have no initiation in our society. They're caught in limbo between childhood and adulthood anyway. So, you know, put on top of that all the other stuff that's going on, it's incredibly difficult times for people.
Right.
But to just really briefly just say a really positive thing, and that's the wrong word, because I don't like positive and negative. I like no, good. I'm glad you said that. So yeah, just take it. No, I'm really glad you said that, because I know that's not you. And take a moment, because what you're pointing out as well is really lovely. And actually, by bringing it up, we're not saying it's all dark and bad. We're bringing it into awareness. And actually, I feel that it's not about going, you know, because often you mention this stuff and people's initial reaction, which is a sense of avoidance, is, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's a bit negative. That's a bit drab. Oh, that's a bit dark. But like what you beautifully said, you know, a few minutes before, is that without going into the burn of the fire, you're not going to, you know, that conscious awareness, that awakening doesn't happen unless you can feel all of the beauty, all of the pain. And that, like you
you beautifully described, they're interwoven. They're not then almost not separate when you see them from more awakened eyes.
Yeah, I'm just feeling that a wee bit, Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to throw a lifeline in there for people that are finding things difficult, and that is, you know, what I call, and it's not I can't remember where I came across it, but it doesn't matter really. But it's baby steps. It's that, you know, just little things. There are always, what is one little thing that I can do today that will help me, you know, get through what it is that I need to get through? Or what is one little thing that will just ease the pain, that you know, that little tiny bit? And you know, that's always my message, is that little steps. And again, this is the same whether we're talking about a young person that's depressed or struggling, or whether we're talking about humanity. It's the same message. There are little things that we can do. Don't feel disempowered. Don't buy into the stuff that you're worthless and too small to make a difference on a global scale. Don't buy into the stuff that you're too small and powerless to make a difference to your own life. Little things done consistently will make a difference. It is, you know, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. If you can just stick with it and keep doing those things gradually, it becomes easier. Because when I look back over my life, it was probably about 20 years ago when I guess my awakening began. There has not been one big miraculous event that has catapulted me into a new way of being. It has been small incremental steps every time, you know?
Yeah, lovely.
Every time.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I was getting the word Buddha was popping up, just constantly saying, you know, life is suffering. And when you're talking and you're pointing out all this stuff, and you're putting yourself in that flame and fire, and taking yourself back into to support the youth and anybody that's out there that come into your field. It's this dance sometimes. I was listening to a wonderful audio yesterday around just, again, another outdated story of the illusion of solidity and the constant resistance to change, and that this constant resistance to change also keeps us in this sort of scarcity and limitation that so many of us find ourselves in. And because that's like a collective agreement, I call it, or collective belief system, or collective whatever else you want to call it, that so many people believe, it's really hard for people to see anything other than that. Because like anything, until you've stepped out of the box and see a different perspective, you can't actually tell anybody there's anything else to see, right? If you go into a room and you don't see that, you know, there's a whole heap of blue balls and you don't see the red ball in the corner, then you can't tell anybody there's a red ball. You know, all you're going to say, there's a load of blue balls in there, you don't want to go in there, right? It's and what I find when I talk about the collective pain body, or Eckhart Tolle uses that description as well, or the collective shadow, when you're in that depression and that limitation, that scarcity and that unworthiness, it's very difficult to even believe or consider, even you could say consider, that there is another way of being. And like you just said, it's like over 20 years, it's these increments. So I suppose my question is, or my inquiry is always, is this just how it has to be? Adversity is life. Life is suffering, as the Buddha said. Deal with your suffering, get over it, work it out, work your tools out. You know, Bob's your uncle. You might live, you might die, you might be in the gutter, right? That's just what we're here on this planet. Or is there the potential of a next generation, a group of youth, a civilization that starts coming through with such a heightened state of evolution and awareness, where they understand their body, they get to understand what it means to be in their shame, guilt, their fear, they realize vulnerability is strength, they realize that they're magnificent beings, this gift of creation, you know, or Or has it always been like this for 2,500 years and whatever? And when Plato and Socrates said that there's the cave of fear, then, you know, we're just in it still. And there's a bit of a ramble there for you, but, you know, it's like, that's what I'm constantly pondering when I meet people. Is this deal with the suffering, or there's another way?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great inquiry, and I see that there's both, because although I've just said I perhaps contradict myself a little bit, yeah, incremental steps. I think I see that we are, you know, we are in the age of the rising of the divine feminine, and for me, part of that feminine is about the faith and you know, belief and trust and in some way just kind of miracles, you know. It's kind of like the masculine thing is kind of like progress and push forward and suffering and go through it, but there are there's a twin trail again. There's also that stuff you can move forward with quantum leaps if with the faith and with that trust and being okay with being in the not knowing. And you know, for me, what it was increasingly rising for me is that it doesn't always have to be effort and pushing forwards in incremental steps. Sometimes what I need to do is just surrender and give up and go, I ain't doing it. You know, I don't know. It's like, okay, I'm not playing anymore. And then bang, everything kind of falls into place. All that effort and all that incremental stuff, it wasn't working then, you know?
Right. So you're talking about letting go and surrendering.
Yeah, there's and you know, and that seems, you know, that's the stuff that I can't get my head around it, like, you know, and I have to accept that that's okay, you know, that's fine, just let it go, Miguel. And you know, again, my life and humanity, I think we're moving into an age where that stuff, you know, because people talk about, you know, that we are unlimited energy and that we are, you know, you know, the illusion of the body and the constraints that we place on ourselves and so on. So, and I believe that there are massive constraints and that we have created through the story within our civilizations and so on, you know?
Right.
When we let go of that stuff and when we move into, when the new is born from this chaos, I don't think it's going to be about governments and money and jobs and schools. I think we're talking about stuff that is beyond the doors of our current perception. Exactly. I think there will be elements of the new that is emerging, new technologies, new ways of being together. But I also believe that there's stuff that we just can't get our heads around at all at the moment, because our heads are just so stuck and so limited, like, you know?
Yeah. So dense.
Yeah.
The energy is so dense that even when we try to think of an alternative or a new narrative or a way out, we still can't break out of seeing that it has to be in the same sort of confines, right? It's we go, we need more conscious schools. So let's build one just like the old schools. And it's like no, let's have an education system. Let's talk about investing and investing for your future and what's it? Bloody pension plans. And you're like, what? Pension plans don't exist in a new consciousness where there's no limitation. It's like where there's no scarcity. Why would you need insurance plans to help you to go through your fear of scarcity?
yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you dropped. I'm really, really glad you dropped into that place, because for me, it's so wonderful what you said, because it's a higher evolved way of looking at the so-called crises anyway, because what we're talking about is that from all chaos, great stars are born. We know that from chaos, great things are born. So if anything, the message I'm taking from you and from us in our conversation is that beautiful, constant confirmation of, I love what you said, and your arms went up in the air and you said surrender. And like, if we get out of the way, if we surrender and let go to all that we know is not serving us. So if you're out there and you're in depression, you've got to ask yourself why you're in so much conflict anyway. So many people in this society are in conflict because they're trying to go with the society that is built and created from a place of pain, lack, and separation. So
Yeah.
within that, it's almost as if the ingredients can only create more pain, lack, and separation, right?
Yeah.
And actually, we got to say, hey, look over here. There's a whole new. There's no boxes. There's just circles, and in those circles, there's no hierarchy. And in that non-hierarchy, there's an element of unity and sovereignty, and even things that we haven't even thought of yet because we're still programmed and conditioned, right? It's like,
Yeah.
let us birth magic, and let us at least show up and go, wow, we're here to welcome in something or allow some sort of something, or I don't even want to name it, but truth to arise uninvited, for example. That feels more exciting. I don't know about what comes up for you, but that feels exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people just get, there just seems to be so much limitation, it's like, yeah, okay. So I really do believe that some of the new will involve stuff that is within our understanding and consciousness right now. But I just have a stronger and stronger sense that there, as I say, that there is stuff that is beyond that. So it's kind of like, yeah, do the incremental stuff, do the masculine stuff, work on the technologies, and don't forget the faith and the feminine and the not knowing and the surrender, and let's open ourselves fully to that as well, because it's not that we have to know it all or work it out, because that, again, we're just coming from a limited old paradigm sort of stuff, isn't it?
Right.
Because all that need to know is all based in fear and stuff anyway, isn't it?
Right, yeah, because when you need to know and and you're scared of the outcome, then you need some sort of solidity, don't you? You need something that's fixed. You need to say, that's why everybody I meet, and I know you've gone through a hell of a lot of change in your life, but there's this thing where with my awareness and perception now, it's really interesting, and I don't mean this by any means thinking I'm superior or belittling anybody else, but it's really interesting when I meet people that just cannot accept change. Like, they cannot accept even to the fact that they cannot even accept that the weather's changed in the day. It's like, it's ludicrous. It's like, change has happened. The clouds have moved. Yes, clouds move constantly. Everything's moving constantly. So-and-so's changed the time on me. Can you believe that? Well, yeah, things change, right? It's like, like you just said at the beginning of this call, we took 25 minutes playing around with the sound. It's like, imagine if you'd come here going, well, I only have an hour and that's all I have. And now we're 25 minutes in. God damn it, Simon. What's going to happen? It's like I don't know what's going to happen moment to moment. I have no clue what's going to happen in the next second.
Yeah.
And I think, but go on. But if something's coming up, I want you to speak to that. But also, I'd love you to talk from a man's perspective a little bit more about your feelings. And please don't go this way if you want to share something else. Whatever comes up for you is I want you to be in your truth. So don't get diverted. But when you talk about the feminine and this feminine energy, and I know that there's a lot of men out there, and I know that you're not into that sort of, I'm going to use the word spiritual jargon and maybe new age stuff, but alongside that, you are in the way that you do it from a grounded perspective. But I don't know, I'd like you to maybe just for a few minutes talk about how you sort of see that from a man's perspective, of that embracing that feminine in you and that vulnerability and that surrender, but only if that's feeling the right direction for you.
Yeah, no, I can speak a little to that. Yeah. I guess the first thing that comes up is around the kind of like the spiritual and the fluffy and the sort of new agey sort of stuff. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm really into kind of like what I call love in action. Spirituality that is grounded in what I'm doing. And I very rarely talk about spirituality, especially with young people. You don't need to if you just be it. It's just live it, just be it, and they absorb it through osmosis. They'll notice it on some level, So it's not something that I need to speak about. But the feminine stuff for me is you know, again, it's that, you know, it's that me, and it's the planet stuff, the big stuff, you know, that the feminine has been suppressed in so many ways, you know, patriarchal society and so on, and the woman and the feminine has been denigrated, and it's been downtrodden because of man's fear of the power of it, and, you know, the creativity and the juiciness and the, you know, the wildness of all that stuff. And you know, my story is that, you know, from a place of no feminine. You know, my mother died when I was very young. My stepmother was not very feminine at all. So it felt like it programmed me, you know, to be in search of that. It's kind of like, you know, when I incarnated, or I had this contract, like, what are you coming down on this planet to learn about? It was like, well, you're going to learn about the feminine, you're going to learn about love. And the best way for us to do that is to give you a little dose of it, a year with your mum that's going to love you, and you're going to be bask in the feminine, and then we're going to take it all away. And then we're going to take it away again, and then we're going to take it away again. So you are going to have within you a really strong pull to find that again. That is what your life, one of the key missions in your life is about. So, you know, for a long time I got lost looking for the feminine externally, looking for it in woman, in the next relationship, in a woman to complete me and to make me feel whole. And where I've come to, it's recent stuff for me, and it's real cusp stuff, real edge stuff of, you know, the feminine is in the earth. You know, the feminine is in nature, is in the creativity. And every morning I go for a walk now, and I spend time in nature with her, and, you know, and just allow myself to sort of be in that. I used to walk, but it was kind of like I was walking on nature. I wasn't walking in it. You know, my head was still masculine. What we've got to do next? Where am I going? And I'd finish the walk, and I'd be like, oh shit, I missed that. You know, I forgot to be there. So it is about, you know, that really sort of recharges me and just reawakens the feminine in me. And you mentioned that word, vulnerability. Vulnerability feels for me the gateway to my feminine and to regaining my power, to empowering myself.
Beautiful.
And you know, this amazing paradox of the more vulnerable I can be, the more naked I am. I know you talk about that. The more transparent, the more, this is all of me, warts and all, with my screw ups, with my mistakes, with my shame, with my guilt. The more I'm empowered, and the more it gives other people permission to be okay with that stuff as well. You know, it's not rocket science. And at the same time, I don't see a lot of it, and there's such a thirst for it, you know.
I love that. Yeah, beautiful, really beautiful. Yeah, take a deep breath on that one. That's so lovely. Yeah, really nice to hear as well. And I really like how you describe walking in nature, with nature as yourself, as that feminine. It's really beautiful. And isn't it so true? I relate with you so much in that when we strip ourselves bare like that. And again, you know, reading your book, and it's funny because I'm writing, and we sort of write, we write quite similar in the way that we just, you know, we sort of just express it how it's happened, and this how it is. And like you said, you use the old English term of warts and all, but it's really is a liberating feeling when it's okay. Like in these conversations and in the work that I do now, and I don't even really call it work, I call it play, but and I'm with people, and I connect with people, and they connect with you when they realize that they've had the same experience as you, and they feel that, you know, it's like you said, it's not damn right, it's not rocket science, but, and I love the word you used, the thirst. There's a thirst for it, because people want connection, they want belonging, and ultimately they're seeking it in all the wrong places, where actually is right here, right now. It's with life in every moment. It's often we're going outside trying to seek it in some grandiose place, or thinking we need to become somebody or some revered person that needs to give us some sort of wisdom or insight, where actually we just need to just go, hey, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. Life's uncertain, and some days it's really challenging for me. And, I'm naked and vulnerable, and I have fears, and I'm worried about the size of my penis, and I'm worried about the size of, I don't like the way I look, and I don't like the way, I've met a lot of women, but I don't like the look of my yoni. I call it yoni, but, I don't like the look of my vagina, or my breasts are funny shapes, and my nipples, one nipple's in a different place than the other. And I meet so much vulnerability. And when it's shared, and when everybody else meets in that lovely, transparent, naked place like you described, and I don't mean that everyone just has to be physically naked, but in that naked, vulnerable, open place, that's where we drop all of the borders and the boundaries and the separation and all of the, I said this today, I wrote it down here actually on a tissue, like all of these labels of separation. So for example, we've got all these labels out there, like he's a coach, he's a mentor, he's a guru, he's a spiritual teacher, he's so-and-so, he's Bob, whatever, right? And them labels in this feared society, this shackles of the invisible prison, are still causing mass amounts of separation from us being able to just connect in our true natural state, in our humanity.
Yeah. It seems that that's what labels were created for, wasn't it? For separation and for hierarchy and for power and for control. And I think I think we've outgrown that stuff. I think it's time to just let that go, because it's just been causing so much pain. And I'm going to have a growing sense of, I want to start talking about the elephants in the room. That's all I want to talk about. I just want to talk about elephants.
Awesome.
That's the thing, and it's like, there's a lovely, Marianne Williamson said just recently, if your life's not a popularity contest, and if what you're saying is just getting applause, then you're probably saying the wrong stuff. And I'm like, I'm not fussed about the applause anymore. I just need to say and start talking about, even if it makes people feel a little uncomfortable to begin with. It's kind of, let's start talking about this stuff, because again, it's so simple. It is so simple.
Right.
And these complicated solutions and stuff, and all we need to do is just be a little vulnerable. We don't even, it's not like you need to suddenly strip off totally. You can just try see what it feels like without your hat to start with. And when you get comfortable with that, see what it feels like without your cardi, see what it feels like without your, what I mean? Let's just do it bit by bit if we want to, or dive in. If you want to dive in, then dive in as well, Yeah.
It's that freedom of choice. And just maybe, again, as we got this opportunity now, just when you say elephants in the room, and when you're with, whether you're with the youth or whether you're with wherever you are, what is some of those core things that we want to be bringing up? Vulnerability, shame. We want to talk about death, but what else comes up for you? What are the things that we really want to share with people when we have the privilege of being with them?
Well, I think that I think what's really on the tip for me, and I'm doing a talk tomorrow, and I know that I'm going to start talking about this stuff tomorrow for the first time. And it's about what's going on in the world, really. The big elephant. And because it seems to me like there's a mass denial. There's so many people, but whenever I do talk about it, whether it's in Rotary clubs or whatever, everybody kind of, there's a little bit of a sigh. Sometimes I get expressions from people like, who invited this bloke? Like, I don't really want to be hearing this stuff. This is a bit uncomfortable. But the majority of people will come up and say, it's so refreshing to hear that, and they want to hear it, because it's in everybody's awareness. Everybody knows what's going on, but the busy, helps people shut it out. We've designed and created so many ways to not feel and not be aware and not talk, and to block out what actually is staring us all in the face.
Right.
you know, and it seems to me that the first step is to be able to talk about it. Let's talk about it, and let's, you know, let's, because of this, you know, I think this mass denial, I think it's a lot about our own shame and our own guilt and our own, you know, because we all know that we're responsible for it. You know, we bought into the into the story that if we worked hard and at school and got lots of qualifications and then got a good job and earned lots of money, everything would all live happily ever after and it would all be wonderful. We bought into that. We bought into it the same as our parents did. And as a result of that, we took our eye off the ball and we forgot that we're actually connected with the planet, and the planet is our mother, and the planet is what nourishes us, and that it's not a finite resource for us to screw over. You know, let's talk about that stuff for starters, hey Simon? You know,
yeah,
exactly. About those elephants.
Yeah, totally. And I feel more and more people are what, like you just said, they're wanting to speak about it, but they need a few people out there that are willing just to put it out there and not fall into the bracket of conspiracy and it's all, you know, because that's another way of denying and not facing. It's just go, oh, he's just going to talk about conspiracy now. But like, let's be honest, the facts are out there now. The beautiful thing about the awareness that we have and the information that we have and the amount of speakers speaking and so on is that it's not hard to find the information. Although what can happen is that there's sometimes an information overwhelm. So it's lovely when people can actually meet grounded people that are willing to just have a, like you beautifully said, have a conversation about it, because that's ultimately where it begins. Everything is a conversation, you know, everything is a conversation. And so if we can have the conversation around all of these, I always say, Miguel, the taboo aspects, which are normally truth, sexuality, and death.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about those three things.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's strange, eh? Isn't it strange? And how that just becomes accepted, and it's okay not to talk about those three key. Yeah, that, you know, that's life force stuff, isn't it? Like, you know, it's kind of like it's like, you know, it's like being a Rolls Royce, but you know, but only never getting out of first gear or something, like, you know what I mean? Or perhaps even just driving around in reverse the whole time.
Yeah, and for some, actually just staying in the garage and never seeing the light.
Yeah. We take it further and further, not even knowing where the bloody keys are to the motor.
Yeah. Not even
knowing they've got a garage.
not even knowing they're a car.
Yeah.
But you know, we can laugh about it, but it's so true. I love how this conversation is evolved myself, in terms of I'm wanting to always offer have the space for these conversations to be out there, and for people to feel safe enough to create them and have them, and often, and not just think that a conversation, like, not conversations of bypass, but conversations. And I think it was beautiful. We sort of come full circle that you spoke about at the beginning is you remember you said, with adversity and with whatever happens, you say it's not what's happened, it's how you respond to what's happened, right? And that's how we began the conversation. So it's quite nice as we come to a close now on, there's the information, there's the elephant in the room. We know that, you know, governments are up to no good. We know that the monetary systems are fraud. We know that everyone's getting, you know, ripped out here. We know we've got finite resources. We know that there's a whole heap of denying going on 24/7. And we have to look at that in ourselves, like Miguel and we spoke about at the beginning. So then, okay, that's out there. Now the question is, how are you going to respond? Not react in fear and closure and close off and shut down. How are you going to respond? And one of the things I always say to people, Miguel, is responsibility, you know, really means my ability to respond. You know, what is my ability to respond? And that's what responsibility means. When you've been given a sense of awareness, you've seen certain things, you've watched, you've got the ability to even be privileged enough to do the research and obtain the information. Then it's like there's only the act of service of then sharing that anyway that comes from there. That's love in action, right? Which is what you said, love in action.
Yeah. 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 No, I totally agree. It's just so simple. It's just it's so simple. And and I just want to say how grateful I am to you for having these conversations, because it's so important. It is so important, and yeah, it's because I don't know I don't know how it is for you, but sometimes doing this sort of stuff, it feels like, well, I'm just doing this stuff, and I don't know if it's making any difference, and it's kind of like, is anybody listening? Are we just talking to ourselves? And at the same time, it's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter if anyone's listening. I could sit and chat with you because these are the only conversations that I want to have. They're the only conversations worth having,
Right.
So
yeah.
Just
But
a real big thank you.
Yeah, bless you. Well, thank you. But no, thank you so much for that acknowledgement. But I want to say that I remember even our first conversation, we met in that space, and we want these conversations because you know what they do, Miguel? They plug us in, they keep us plugged into that higher state of awareness. They keep us fueled up and infused. And it's funny that you mentioned this, because I just recorded I'm reading Charles Eisenstein's book on audio. And if anybody's watching this talk, I've started reading it at the beginning of this year, and I'm just slowly working my way through it. But I think we're on chapter 11 or so. But I just read the chapter on morphogenesis, which is, you might have heard of Rupert Sheldrake, Miguel, who talks about morphic resonance. And morphic resonance is basically and I know you're going to know this, but you remember Roger Bannister that did the 4-minute mile? Yeah. So what happened is that there were so many people trying to do the 4-minute mile, run the 4-minute mile all around the world. And then once he did the 4-minute mile, within, I think it was weeks or months, everybody that had been trying to achieve the 4-minute mile could achieve the 4-minute mile. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one example, and there's others out there like the 100th Monkey and a number of different experiments that have proven that when one thing happens here, it's happening. It has the capacity to happen over the other side of the planet, and who knows, anywhere else in the universe. So when you say, sometimes I think all of us out there, all of the people out there that are really putting themselves out there as messengers or supporters or whatever in service, I think they all doubt sometimes and have the thought that, my little growing my vegetable patch over here as permaculture, is that really helping out the mass amount of, military madness or whatever? But it really is. And even if, and you know what, if we're making this all up and we have the capacity, and we're, like you said earlier, we're way beyond these limited beings, then this isn't about, a beautiful book I read once called Blind Faith. And this isn't about blind faith. This isn't about, massive raging optimism and just hope. It encapsulates a little bit of hope and faith, like you said. But we've got to also plug into that innate knowing that you and I know that this conversation is serving us and benefiting us. I feel it. I feel it in all of the cells in my body in this moment. So if it's helping you and I, it's taking that out into the message and the work that we're continuing to do. And it's definitely going to benefit some people, even if it just benefits one person that listens to this. Because I've often got caught up, Miguel, in the competition and the comparing that I've been programmed in. And my talks getting as many talks as Lilu Mace or whoever else is out there, the 200 or more other people out there doing these sort of conversations. And you just have to go, you have to just breathe and check in and go, wow, how insane is that conditioning to even constantly creep up on me? And that's where we are in that competitive comparison. That comes back down to core unworthiness, you see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Gratitude to you.
Yeah. No, it's been good. It was worth waiting a year for.
Listen, one thing before we go and say goodbye to each other, and I want to just tell people, of course, if you go to the links underneath the video, there's always Miguel's websites there, and I'm going to put the link in there to his recent project. But do you want to just say, in terms of the project, because that was like the pilot project with the youth, do you want to just say the last few words? There's a video I know on your YouTube page to watch, 5-minute video, which I watched. And are you now seeking more funding to work with more youth? Do you want to just say a little bit on that?
Thanks, Simon. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Voices of the Future project was, in essence, using the medium of public speaking to empower young people, to give them a platform to be heard, to give them a voice. And having run the project once and it being a roaring success, we want to scale it up. I believe that, using that medium, using that sort of model, we can do great service for an awful lot of young people. So currently, I've just spent 2 days immersed in a big funding bid application, one of my least favorite things, but it's something that needs to be done. So looking for funding, and almost like, more importantly, looking for youth organizations, kind of conscious youth organizations that want to collaborate, because it's one of the difficult things is bringing the young people in. I haven't got this great big massive reservoir of young people that I know, and I want to be doing the project in different areas of the country. It's a 3-year project we're looking at, and with it gradually moving to the point where the young people are facilitating and running their own projects. So I'm stepping back all the way. So it's really, I want to really be, really living that empowerment thing. It's not about grown-ups being in charge of these projects. It's year one, I take some of the pilot young people and they start facilitating the year one project. Year two, we take some more that have come from that performed in the year one project. They start facilitating, becoming part of the steering group, the management group of the second project, so that by the 3rd year, there's a core of young people that can run the project, and I can just kind of like really step back and just let them do it. So yeah, if people would want to have a look at the video, which gives you a real sense of what the project is about. And I would love to hear from anybody that's vaguely interested in anything at all, about what's going on.
Yeah, lovely. I love that. Yeah, and I want to just as well acknowledge you and acknowledge your persistence and determination. And I know you said, "Are you making a difference?" But I've already read some of the feedback, and from looking at that video, if you do pop your clogs tonight in your sleep, I think you should head off wherever we head off to, and feeling very feel good, because I can feel it and I see it in the video, and I can just see that we're making it. There's many of us out there, and you're making a difference to those 8 people. And often what we do is we do fall into thinking it needs to be bigger and grander and so on. But again, that's coming from the eyes of a limited mind, because if we're talking about the vastness of 8 individuals and the capacity and the universes within them, then wow. Wow. To imagine, Miguel, to unleash 8 powerful human beings' potential. Wow.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, Simon. Yeah, that's true. And it is. Yeah, sometimes it feels like, it's never quite enough, that I'm never doing quite enough, and I catch myself, and it is enough. I go to bed and I know that I've given it my best shot, and I've given what I've got to give, and that is enough. That is enough. And like you say, there's no measuring it. It's no, if I've touched 1,000 people, it's better than touching 1 person, or all that measurement stuff and linear stuff. It's like, let it go, Miguel. Let it
exactly go. Yeah, so beautiful, and it's so beautiful because it is about that is what we've exactly spoken about, isn't it? That's like me counting, measuring who's viewed the thing, and thinking, well, we need 20 million people, and when we've got 20 million testimonials, then we've definitely made a difference, And you know what else is beautiful, Miguel? This is like, I love this. I'm so buzzing as we get just before we go, but listen to this, Miguel. In that world of non-separation, then you and I are not separate, i.e., when my friend yesterday went to do a beautiful talk, a wonderful man here on the island went to do a wonderful talk, and I went to help out and support him while he could go and do that talk. And while you and I are doing a conversation and we're connecting, and I'm reading your book and sharing and telling somebody, and they might watch this video. Like, can you see that there is no separation in the ripples of that energy that's going out there? And it's only when we fall into the idea that we're alone and we're on our own, and there's just the one single individual doing all of this, that's when we fall into that same lack and limitation and resistance to what is actually unfolding.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I really hear that, and I forget it, and I remember it, and I forget it, and I remember it. but it is, without a doubt, it is a time of joining up the dots. It is a time of connection. It's happening beautifully. Just tools like Facebook and stuff, where people are waving their hands and going, "Hey, I'm waking up. Let's connect up." And it's like, that. The old idea of strangers is like, that's old paradigm stuff. There are no strangers, It's kind of like we're all connecting, and we're all, so that there is that joining, whether it's from a morphic resonance perspective or on the surface kind of perspective. It is all separation. Excuse the cliche, but it's all one, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, it's all, and that can sometimes, like that. When we say that as well, that can sometimes it can confuse people and get them all going. But I definitely love the interconnectedness of everything, the web. In fact, didn't you call it the web or something? And I tell you, there's one thing I think I want to end on. I don't know if I've got your video open. There's a lovely little where is it here? I don't know if I've got it here. Where is it? The little thing. This might be nice to share with people. Where are you? We'll maybe end on this little quote that you posted, if I've got it here. And oh no, I love this. Yeah, a society grows great when old men, old men like us, old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall not sit. I love that. Society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall not sit.
Yeah.
And I loved that when I read that.
Yeah, let's keep planting trees, Simon?
Yeah, let's keep planting trees. So, beautiful man. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you to the live viewers, and thank you to everybody that continues to watch these wonderful conversations that I'm creating. And just thank you. It's deep gratitude. And I'd love you, if you're loving these conversations and you'd like to support the videos, Patreon page, which I've now put up, which is so super cool. You just head over to patreon.com, Simon on the Sofa. And basically, it's so cool. It's like an ongoing crowdfunding campaign where you can just contribute $1, $2, $3. It's literally 50p a pound. That every time a video's put on through the Patreon community, you guys contribute back to me to continue this work. And that continues videos. It supports me to get equipment. It's a beautiful way of, if you love these videos and you want to support from a gift perspective, from a new way of exchanging and supporting, it's really opened the doors for that. So thank you all for your support. So Miguel, take care. I'm gonna close this broadcast now and broadcast. I love that. Stop this broadcast. I'm gonna close this one and thanks again, Miguel. Thank you for the work, and I'll speak to you in a second.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.